The day the billionaire walked into the shelter, no one noticed him at first. Not the volunteers busy sorting donated clothes, not the families lining up for lunch, not even the security guard by the door. He looked like just another older man in a dark coat, shoulders heavy with years, eyes tired but sharp. But the moment his gaze landed on a thin teenage girl sitting on the edge of a bunk bed, clutching a worn backpack like it was her only anchor in the world, something inside him broke. His heart skipped, then sank. Because he was looking at his own blood, his granddaughter, living in a place no child from his family was ever meant to see. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us humanity still matters, please take a moment to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel Kindness Thread. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them most. The shelter was bright with daylight pouring through tall windows, yet it felt cold. Her grief was dismissed as inconvenience. Eventually, there were excuses about financial strain, about sacrifices, about how hard things were. And then one morning, under the bright sun of an ordinary day, she was dropped off at a shelter with a backpack and reassurances that never came true. At the shelter, days followed a strict routine. Wake up early. Line up for breakfast. Attend school with borrowed supplies. Return before curfew. Smile politely. Say thank you. Do not complain. She learned quickly that invisibility was safer than need. She watched other children cling to parents who still had hands to hold. She listened to stories whispered at night, stories of loss that made her own pain feel both heavy and small. Through it all, she carried a quiet question she did not know how to ask. What had happened to the future she was promised? The billionaire stood frozen, the weight of that question crashing into him all at once. He had trusted systems, paperwork, and people who spoke in polished tones. He had trusted that money, once set aside, would do its job without his constant presence. He had trusted that family bonds, even complicated ones, would hold. That trust now felt like a terrible mistake. When he finally approached her, his presence drew attention. Volunteers paused. A caseworker glanced over. The girl looked up, startled, eyes widening with a mix of confusion and fear. She did not recognize him at first. Years of absence had blurred his face into memory. But something about his eyes made her sit straighter, made her feel seen in a way she had not felt in a long time. As he learned the truth piece by piece, the room seemed to shrink around him. The trust fund had been accessed. Legal loopholes had been exploited. Paperwork had been signed when the girl was too young to understand, too scared to question adults who told her it was all necessary. Her stepmother had assured everyone it was for housing, education, stability. Yet none of that stability had reached the child standing in front of him. The sun outside remained bright, indifferent to the storm brewing inside him. His shock turned into anger, then into something sharper and more focused. This was not just about money. This was about betrayal, neglect, and a child forced to grow strong too early. He looked at his granddaughter and saw resilience that should never have been tested, maturity born from survival rather than care. Change did not come instantly, but it began that very day. He stayed. He listened. He made calls, not with rage or a problem to be managed. She felt like family. In the days that followed, her world shifted. She moved into a temporary home filled with sunlight, clean sheets, and space to breathe. She returned to school without fear of where she would sleep at night. Counselors helped her untangle grief she had been carrying alone. Slowly, cautiously, she allowed herself to imagine a future again. Not because of money, but because someone had shown up and stayed. The legal consequences were swift and severe. The misuse of the trust fund was exposed. Excuses collapsed under scrutiny. The stepmother's carefully constructed narrative could not withstand the truth. But the girl did not dwell on revenge. What mattered more to her was something far quieter. It was the simple act of being asked how she felt. Of being believed. Of being chosen. As weeks turned into months, the billionaire watched his granddaughter transform. She laughed more easily. She slept without nightmares. She began talking about dreams, about college, about helping other children who felt forgotten. He realized then that the greatest loss had not been the money, but the time stolen from her childhood. And he vowed to spend the rest of his years making sure no one ever took her safety for granted again. If this story has touched your heart even a little, please take a moment right now to comment below. Share what part moved you the most or what kindness means to you. Your words matter more than you know. On a bright morning much like the one when he first found her, the girl stood outside her new school, sunlight warming her face. She carried herself differently now. Not hardened, but grounded. The shelter was no longer her present, only a chapter in her past. And while the scars remained, they no longer defined her worth. Just before this story ends, we have one small request. Please comment a single word below that represents hope to you. Let this space become a reminder that even in the hardest moments, someone is watching, someone cares, and change is possible. And if this story moved you, if it made you feel something deep and human, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Thread. Your engagement helps stories of compassion travel further, reaching hearts that need light in their darkest days.